What do the $ and the underscore mean in SwiftUI? Hey, I'm Paul Solt from Super Easy Apps. We're going to learn about these different symbols and their different use cases. So let's dive right in and get started. Let's first talk about the $ symbol. I'm going to be copying over code and we're going to be talking about it as we go. So let me just paste it in and we're going to look and see what we have here. So the very first example that we're going to see is what's called a binding. So when we work with SwiftUI, we have states, which is our sort of data that we can mutate. And when we mutate it and when we change that data, it will update the UI accordingly. And so you will see states, which is a property wrapper that's going to be at states. And here we have a Boolean value called is toggled. And so when we flip this, we're going to see that the feature is on, the feature is off. And so when we work with SwiftUI, because a lot of the stuff that we're working with are structures, we go to toggle, you will see that toggle is a struct right here. And a structure is passed by value. But SwiftUI sort of bridges that gap of passed by value versus passed by reference by using these property wrappers. These property wrappers basically have external storage for our variables, and they allow us to persist state across the lifetime of a user interface. Otherwise, the view that you're working with, this struct, which is of type view, is going to be created and discarded multiple times throughout the rendering loop. And that's a whole lot of mumbo jumbo. But what that means is that we need a special way to hook in to mutate these values. When we want to change these values, we have to use the $. So you're going to see it right here. This is the enable feature. This is a toggle. We give it a title, and then we give it an is on. And if we look at the method syntax here, we're going to see that this is going to take a title key, and is on is a binding. So when you see binding of type bool, that means we are creating a two-way street so that we can pass information to, but more importantly, we can pass information back out. And so that is what bindings are for. So we're saying we want to pass in this state value. This is a primitive data type, which means that by default, it is going to be passed by a copy. So when we pass this to a function, it's passed by a copy. But binding allows us to basically mutate the original state. And so that's going to attach to this thing. And so when we have this inner control, it can now toggle that on and off. And so it is mutating the state of is toggled. Now, if we didn't do something like this, well, first off, it's not going to compile in SwiftUI. You're going to see errors like this, where it's going to say cannot convert value is toggled of type bool to expected type binding of type bool. So there's a type mismatch between bool and binding of bool. And so when you see this warning, that's an indication to you that you need to use a binding. And so we can use this shorthand syntax, which is just a $. It's the special symbol in Swift UI to pass that in. Okay, so that's our first example. And you can see that this is working. So in Xcode 16, we get a lot of great new features, and they've revamped how previews work. And so that is one of the features that we're. All right, we're going to jump back to working with an observable object protocol. So that's what this is here. We have a class that we want to look at from a SwiftUI view, and we're going to use that as our backing store for the information in our application. And the way this works, actually state objects, the old, no, you still need to do it for this method. Okay, so if you're working with the observable object protocol, I believe you have to do state object here. If you switch over to the macro, then you're going to write this just as a state. Careful with mixing that up. If you mess it up, you won't see the UI update in certain cases. And so that can be a source of bugs. Now, if we were to add another property here, let's go back to that toggle is on equals false. And then let's go ahead and add a text. What do I want here? I want a toggle. And the toggle, we're going to look for one that takes a title key and is on binding to bool. So let's go ahead and do this one, press enter, and we're going to say is on, and then we're going to do our binding. So here I want to pass in is on. Now is on is in that view model. So let's grab the view model and say is on. And if we do that, you're going to see cannot convert from bool to binding of bool. So again, we saw this at the very beginning of this lesson. And the issue here is that we need to pass a binding. So how do we do that? Where do we put the $sign? And so if we do it like this, does it work? And the answer is yes. So when we do this, this basically creates a binding for is on. Now, it can be a little confusing. There are certain instances where sometimes Swift is like, oh, you've got to put it here. But you'll see that this is actually going to turn it into a publisher, not a binding. So that's not the proper spot for the $sign. We need to put it here, which then turns this into a binding wrapper around this published property. Okay, so doing that, we can now toggle this, and we're not actually seeing it show that. So let's prove that it's actually working. We'll just create a variable here, call it onState. Or actually, no, better yet, let's just color everything. So here we could use the background, and we could toggle off of our view model dot is on. And if it's on, here's another instance. This is another symbol. This is the question mark. I'll have another video on this. We can go with a blue background, or we can go with let's go with a red background. So this is going to allow us to sort of update state. And so you can see that we're using that state, and we're effectively using the toggle to mutate the state of our view model, which is then driving the UI changes. And so that's one of the powers of SwiftUI, is that it allows you to SwiftUI allows you to basically drive your interface from a data model. And so this is an example using the Observable Object protocol, which if we look at that is here. There is a new version, which is the Observable macro, which I'll talk about in another. Okay, so next up, let's look at another example. This is going to be closures. So closures are used a ton in SwiftUI. So you sort of have to understand how this works. And I'm going to write something that looks a little bit gnarly. So this might look totally foreign to you. And let me just explain it piece by piece. So we've got an array of numbers. And what I want to do is I want to iterate over these numbers and display them in the app. So we could just write it like this. And you're going to see it's going to say 1, 2, 3. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Zoom in down here. So we're going to see the output over on the right. And we could insert ×3. And so now it's going to triple instead of double, or we can go back to 2. So what is really going on here? Well, we are using the map function, which is a little bit of an advanced topic. This is basically going to go through and be a for each loop for every single element, and it's going to do something with those. And so this is what we have here. This is a closure, and we're saying, give me that first parameter and multiply it by 2, and then we're returning the result. So Swift now has the ability to have return statements if it's a single line thing. This sort of supports functional programming. Now let's take a look. I'm going to comment this out, and we're going to rewrite it just to make this easier for you to follow. We're going to put this on a new line, and I'm going to come down here, and we'll just separate this a little bit. So this is our closure that's going to execute. We're going to focus on this. Again, changing this, we'll see the values will update over here. What we can do to make this a little bit less dense is we could give this first property a name. So this is a parameter that's being passed in. So we could just call this the number, and we could say the number in this closure. And now we're not doing an anonymous closure argument. So that's what this is complaining about. It's saying anonymous closure arguments cannot be used inside of a closure that has explicit arguments. Did you mean number? And so here the fix-it is actually correct. We want to do the number ×2. So when you see that $sign, that's equivalent to whatever this value would be. And so every single one of these is going to come in here. So it's going to be 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Then we're going to get the 2. 2 is here. 2 times 2 is 4. And then 3. 3 comes in. 3 times 2 is 6. And so that's what we see when we see the double. And what we're doing is with this for each loop, we're basically iterating over all of these values. So we're giving it an input array. And then we are, again, having another inner closure here. And this one is taking a number similar to our number up here, but it's a different scope. So it's not the same, but it will be the same value. So we're executing this. And what we're doing is we're creating a text on screen with that number, which was calculated in this expression. Now, we could have moved this out. We could say doubled numbers like this, and we could have done an initializer or something like this where we say doubled numbers equals, and let's doubled numbers be a int array, which is going to be assigned at our initializer. And so this is the same type of thing. It's a little bit more readable now. We're not having all of this mumbo jumbo on one line, which when you're getting started can sort of derail you. So if we then clean this up, this looks a lot more readable to me than this initial expression. But that's an example of something you're going to see commonly throughout SwiftUI. So there's lots of closures, which are basically anonymous functions or functions that can run and execute and do things. And we typically use them to do the UI design. So that's what you're going to see in SwiftUI. Let's take a look at use cases for underscore. Okay, so use cases for underscore. Let's look at an example here. Sometimes we have a tuple, and so if we want to ever ignore a value or a result that comes back, this is our way of getting rid of a compiler error. So if we were to give it a name, so if I can do an insertion here, and I'll call this first, and I save it, what you're going to see generally when we're building the code is that Apple tends to, and it's not doing it in this, maybe. Let's do a print statement here, see if we get a little bit more help from Xcode. I don't know if I have to run this. There we go. I have to run it. Okay. Let's undo this. Okay. So looking at this, you're going to see immutable value first was never used. Consider replacing it with an underscore or removing it. So if you've ever seen this warning, it's safe to remove it. Sometimes you need, sometimes whatever's on this side you need to call, and you don't care about one of the parameters. This could be when you're parsing data from a web API. Maybe you don't want to look at the response right now just because you're trying to get something working as quickly as possible. So that's where you would use it, and you just go like this, insert a underscore, and that gets rid of that warning. It's saying basically, don't worry about this. I'm not going to use it. So that's an example of the underscore. Let's take a look at another example. All right, so another example of the underscore is this greet function. So sometimes we don't want to have a parameter label. And so one of the ways that Swift does this is we have the underscore. So underscore here means that you don't have to write the variable label, or sorry, the parameter label right here down on this greeting. So we can go ahead and get this to show the preview, and we're going to see that it's going to say, hello, Swift developer. Now, if I were to change this line, so let's comment that line out and I'll rewrite it at the end of the line. Okay, so if I wanted to write this a different way, if we do this, now you're going to see that it's going to say missing argument label name in call, insert name. So in order to get this to be fixed, we now need to do this line. Okay. So that is the difference with having an underscore. It forces you to have the label name. Sometimes if you're coming from a C background, you just want to have this approach, not a named label, and you want to keep it short and sweet. Sometimes your method name is going to have the name of the variable. So you would just ignore it in that case. Another instance where you're going to see this is with the wild pattern matching in a switch statement. So let's take a look at that. If you do something like this, this should match everything else. So if we do 1 up top and we save this, you're going to see it says 1. So it's matched here, and we're using switch to give back a value. So in this case, it's going to give us 1. If we give it anything else, it's going to go into this other category. So if I give it 8, you're going to see it is not 1. Now, this is going to be the same thing as doing default. We could do text not 1. So in this case, we could do it either this way or this way. They're going to result in the same thing, but that's where you might see it in a case statement. All right, so thank you for watching this video. If this was helpful, comment down below or hit the like button, depending on where you're watching this. And I really appreciate your support. All right, so if you're watching this on YouTube, I have a new course that's coming out, and by the time you're watching this, it'll probably already be out. And you can join that course when I open up enrollment. So join the course on this link. So you just enter your email address here, and I will send you an email if the course is open. If it's not open yet, because I've closed it due to the current course starting, then you can sign up on the wait list and just get notified when it kicks off again. This is going to be a project-based course, and there's going to be some live office hours. If you join later in the year, those live office hours might just be recorded, so you can sort of follow along with those. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.